Hi, everybody.
Hello, I'm Ryan.
I'm Bethany.
And we are Ryan and Bethany Board Game Reviews.
And today we have a top 10 for you. We're doing our top 10 favorite cooperative games.
That's right. We love cooperative games. That was one of the first early things that we did, together as an early couple, playing cooperative games, being cooperative together, and getting our butts kicked by games. We love challenging games for whatever reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I guess some days you want an easy one, but most of the time when we have the time for it and we have the mental strength for it, we're going to choose the harder modes on all these games.
Yeah, we're very used to losing. But before we get to our top 10 list, we wanted to do some honorable mentions.
Yes.
I just wanted to mention, just as a blanket, there are a lot of kids games. A lot of kids games are cooperative games, which are great because it teaches some basic gaming concepts while you're all working on the same team. So a lot of kids games could have been mentioned on this list, but we didn't mention any of them. But I just wanted to point that out, that there's so many, especially like early level kids games like Bye Bye Mr. Fox or Orchard or Go Away Monster. I mean, those are all cooperative games.
I wanted to mention Fox and the Forest Duet really quick. What a cool concept. A 2-player trick-taking game that's also cooperative. It's totally bizarre. I played it with my dad the other day, and it worked really, really well because he knows trick-taking games.
Exactly.
So that was just a really cool way to do a cooperative trick-taking game, which is extremely bizarre and works really well, actually.
Yep. And
the last one, Fuse. Real-time craziness. Love it. All right, so now on the real list.
The real list. Not the honorable mentions, but the top 10, baby!
You see how you squeezed in a couple extra games?
It's not like that's intentional.
Top 22. top 11 or something. All right, anyways. All right, so do you want to go first?
I would be delighted to.
All right.
All right, so my number 10 is Tiny Epic Defenders. This is part of the Tiny Epic line, and you are moving around on different cards to try to make it so bad stuff doesn't happen to the main card in the middle. I especially like this with the expansion where you have a card that's flipped over, and so it's kind of like even more challenging to play. Of course it is. Of course I like it with the expansion, but my number 10 is Tiny Epic Defenders.
All right, my number 10, this is Forbidden Desert. Matt Leacock made this whole series of Forbidden Island, Forbidden Desert, and Forbidden Sky, along with a whole bunch of other cooperative games that we might mention later. But the point is, this one is one of those early ones that we talked about when we were in our relationship. Basically, you have your helicopter, crash land into this desert. You have to undig all this sand. You have to find these components to this magical flying machine, build it, put it all together, get to the landing pad, and fly away before the time runs out.
All while the storm is happening.
All this, and the storm is brewing around in this crazy board. It's unbelievably cool the way the storm moves around. You need to work together well on this one, or else you're not going to be able to survive.
All right, my number 10 is like 100%.
Number 9?
My number 9 is 100% cheating, but that's just the basic unlock system.
Yeah.
So I really like unlock games. I personally prefer them to Exit. Exit is totally fun, but I prefer the unlock system. So just those games in general, they're only one-time plays, which is why they're not higher on the list, but they're also great games to play if you're just having people over for a dinner night, because it's just a one and done. It's really simple. They have that intro scenario, and then you understand what the game wants, and you can just play it. So my number 9 is the unlock games.
Which is like an escape room style game.
Yes.
It uses an app to kind of run itself. It's very smooth. All right, so my number 9, this is Marvel United. This is a game that I play with our daughter quite a bit, our oldest 8-year-old daughter, not as opposed to our youngest 8-year-old daughter. No, this is a game that has a whole bunch of characters that she loves and that I love, and we get to kind of beat up on these monsters. And it's very, very simple. There's only 3 really things that you can do: move around, do a special action, or fight, basically. And you have these tokens and cards that let you do all that. It's very, very smooth. Each monster that you're facing, or each bad guy that you're facing, has a completely different scenario of what things you're trying to accomplish, and they scale really nicely as far as how difficult they can get. So Marvel United is a great one that I can play with our daughter. It plays best at 2, in my opinion. The more that you have in there, the crazier it can get, the more the bad guys can affect you between turns.
All right, my number 8 this time. Not 10 again, but 8.
That's how we get even more games on the list. Let's keep on number 10. Our next number 10.
Number 10.2 is Flashpoint Fire Rescue. So in this game, you are firefighters, and there's a house that is burning down, and you are trying to find people and rescue them. All the while, the structure, the stability of the house is falling apart, or the building is falling apart. So you have to do a risk reward sometimes of cutting through a wall, knowing that the building just isn't stable, but also not having enough time or actions in order to rescue people. So this is a very, very intense game, but it's very fun.
All right, now my number 8 is Return to Dark Tower. This is this big giant tower that is spitting out these skulls at you, and the more skulls that are on your board, the worse it is for you. You have monsters roaming all over the board. There's 3 different levels of monsters. They're harder and harder and harder. Plus, on top of that, you have all these different objectives that are constantly changing between months. It is an ever-shifting kind of horizon that you're having to kind of work towards. But at the same time, you have to build up all these different resources. So when you face those monsters and those bad guys, you're not completely left in the dust. Very, very challenging. I think I've won 2 missions out of like a whole bunch that we've played. The win-loss ratio is definitely, one that's heavier on the loss side for sure. And it's just very, very replayable as well. Plus, it's got this cool toy factor. This big giant toy that lights up and glows and yells at you and stuff. Another one's kind of got an app-driven thing to it, but it's a lot of fun.
My number 7 is Fantastic Beasts Perilous Pursuits. I know there was another Perilous Pursuit that just came out, so if any of you have played that, let me know what you think about it. But in Fantastic Beasts Perilous Pursuits, there are beasts that have escaped, and so you're trying to make them, push them back into the suitcase, if you're familiar with the movie at all, but you're trying to push them back. And so you all have different characters who have different abilities, and you're rolling these dice to try and manipulate things that are happening, and you can help each other with your dice roll, but this is like a really tough game. And
have we ever won?
I don't know. I don't know if we have. I remember when we first were taught this game, though, we were taught it like so wrong, and we had already bought it. Do you remember that?
I do.
We had bought it, and then like we were at a convention, and we're like, "Oh yeah, let's play it." And then I'm like, "Why did we buy this game?" Come to find out, we were taught like so wrong about how to play this game, and when we played it correctly, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
All right, so my number 7. This is what I was hinting at earlier. This is Pandemic, but this is Pandemic Legacy, Season 1 specifically. Oh my gosh, this might go down in history as one of our favorite gaming experiences, the whole collective of it. It's got this, pandemic as a system. You're running around the board trying to remove cubes, which represent diseases. You're trying to treat people. You're trying to cure the diseases themselves, and you are kind of constantly getting more and more peril. The cities that have been hit once are going to get hit again. On top of that, you have, specifically in the legacy scenarios, you have this kind of growing story arc that's happening as well, that's developing over the course of this game. There's some really, really fun twists. Your characters get stronger, but the board gets more and more challenging as well. It's like you're getting an expansion. Basically, every time you open a new month, they call it, a new game, you get all new goodies and all new challenges to mess with. So, oh my gosh, this one was super fun. Pandemic Legacy Season 1.
My number 6 is the Letter Jam, and this is actually a word game, and the reason why I say it like that is because I don't like a lot of word games, because I just doubt myself when it comes to spelling things, so I struggle with that. But all these are just, what it is you have 5 letters, but you don't know what your letters are, and everybody has 5 letters, and so you have one of your letters at a time facing all of the other players, so everybody can see everybody else's letter but themselves. And what you're doing is you're trying to get people to guess their letter. So you have these chips, and you're spelling words. You have chips numbered 1 through, I think it goes
8.
1 through 8. And so you're placing in order, that's the order of the word. So you're basically writing down, what could my letter be based on the order of this? Sometimes it's super obvious, and sometimes it's just not really obvious, especially if you have a vowel and you're just like, this could be 3 letters right now. But this game is so much fun. I when people like word games, this is kind of like the one I try to push at them the most, because I just feel like if you already like word games, this is definitely just a shoo-in for a game that you're going to enjoy.
All right, so my number 6, this is Escape. Basically, this is a kind of a temple kind of situation where you're trying to escape from this temple. Basically, you've taken too much treasure. The temple's waking up. It's mad at you. It's trying to keep you trapped there forever. And you are just rolling these dice furiously. It's a real-time game. You are just running. You have dice that get locked up. You have to try to unlock them so you can keep on doing what you need to do. You need to collect a certain amount of gems, or actually kind of put back a certain amount of gems, so that way the temple is less mad at you. And you have to just roll furiously between room to room to room. It's a game where you can want to travel around in pairs, more or less. That way you can kind of help each other out when your dice get locked up. This is just super, super chaotic. You get a little bit of a breather, at 2 different points in the game where it's like a pause moment where it's the gong sounds, and you have to okay, ready, go. You start again. Really, really exciting. Every expansion just makes it more and more challenging, and I love it.
And it's only 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Yeah, because it's timed.
Yeah, and afterwards you're just like, whew.
Yeah. This one we actually win a lot more than we lose.
Yeah, I think we've found, like we talked about, being in pairs definitely helps.
All right, everybody, it's on to number 5, and guess what? It's crossover time. Woo, woo.
That's right. We have the exact same number 5. This is a game that we have been playing kind of throughout the past couple of years remotely with some of our best friends. This is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. This is a kind of a mystery game. You are given a scenario. You are like one of Sherlock Holmes' buddies, right?
Yeah.
And
he really doesn't have buddies, but you think you're his buddy.
And someone comes to you and Sherlock with this scenario. Hey, I've got this problem. I got something went missing. There's a murder that we need solved. Whatever the case is, and Sherlock, he just figures it out because that's how he is.
Yeah.
But you are given a series of clues as far as how you're going to solve this.
Yes.
You have to go from address to address to address, piecing together little pieces of the clues in order to solve this mystery. Of course, at the end, you're going to go to see Sherlock. He's going to ask you a series of questions. And how well did you do? Did you actually solve a mystery? And in fact, there's sometimes some side mysteries that you might uncover as well. There's one that was like a murder case that we accidentally, by going to the wrong addresses, we solved like a jewelry heist as well. So you get little pity points for solving those little side missions as well. And then Sherlock tells you how he figured it out. And you have to compare yourself to his score. Listen, don't worry about that.
Don't do that. Well, and also there's not a board component. This is all just text. So you're all just reading text, reading what people said, reading stuff in a newspaper. I mean, that's all it is. And that's why I think it worked really well when we played, because we both had a copy. So we could both, read these things at the same time. So it just worked out really well. And like Ryan said, I think after, the second game, maybe, we stopped trying to beat Sherlock. And we just, started exploring the game.
Yeah, our score was abysmal.
We stopped scoring.
Yeah.
We just we tried to explore the game. We tried to solve it. We did try to solve every case. It wasn't like we didn't try to solve the case. But we wanted, they took all the time to write all these entries for all the people. You might as well explore and appreciate what the designers did.
So that was just a kind of a I don't know, work of art in a way of how they put all this together. I absolutely love Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective.
Yes.
Our number 5.
All right, my number 4 is Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle. This is a cooperative deck building game, and I remember when I first heard about a cooperative deck building game, I was like, phooey, I don't believe you, you lie. But it works out really well. This is another one that our 8-year-old just loves, absolutely loves this game. I think it is really beneficial that she's so familiar with the Harry Potter characters that a lot of the things as to why certain characters could do things or why you have stuff with certain characters, it just makes sense, and so she's able to learn and play the game. We do, whenever we do play this game though, if Ryan and I just play, we always play with 4 characters instead of just playing 2 characters, because it's almost too easy with 2 characters. And so we just have a lot more fun with the 4 characters in this game. But there's a bad guy in the middle. You're trying to get all these cards in order to make those bad guys go away. And then a new bad guy comes out until eventually you face he who must not be named.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, my number 4, this is Freedom, the Underground Railroad. Now, this is a game that I do not mention lightly. This is a game about the topic of slavery. Unbelievably dark time in our country's history, right? But the game is extremely educational about the struggle that people went through during that time. Escaping up to the north and getting away from the plantations, right? and it highlights not only the escaping itself and getting, going north, but also all the fundraising that needed to happen, so that way political change could happen. You needed to have all this money that was raised, so that way there was kind of some political movement happening as well, in order to abolish slavery as a law. And so this is not a game that we talk about lightly. It's not a game we play lightly. This is one of those ones that, all the flavor text and battle cards, most games, like, I just ignore it. It's like, yep, some kind of a dragon. It's, he likes gold or whatever. This one's like, oh no, this is Frederick Douglass. Oh, look what he did. This is some really important stuff that he did during history. Oh, Harriet Tubman. This is something really, and it gets into like the really, really crazy sub-characters too. Like, not characters, people who we don't get talked about as much. Talks about some of the efforts they did in their part to make the slavery movement abolished. So, a really, really, really challenging game, extremely deep game as well. And this is a game that I don't play it lightly. This is not a gamified slavery thing. It's not that kind of thing. This is a educational, eye-opening, thing for me.
Yes, very much so. My number 3 is Robinson Crusoe. This is just like, so you're on the island and you're trying to survive, but what's really amazing about this game is the decisions you make early on are going to affect what happens in the game later. Like, so there's some meat and it's questionable, do you eat it or not? Like, if you don't eat it, you can starve, but if you do eat it, it's going to get put back in and you could potentially get sick later. So there's all those really interesting decisions that you have to make, and you have to make these shelters, but you also have to like just survive. And so it's just really challenging, and I just like how you can't do anything without consequences. So some of those consequences can be good consequences later on.
You help someone out. You went out of your way to help someone, and then later on they come back. Maybe, or whatever.
Yeah. So like I like that almost every action has consequences, and you just can't just willy-nilly play, I guess. So that is my number 3.
All right, my number 4 is Horrified. This is all of the Universal Studios monsters. They are roaming around this town, terrifying the villagers. You have to basically fight them off, but each monster has its own way of defeating it. And so, for instance, when you have Frankenstein and his bride, they're roaming the board. They just want to fall in love, but right now they're too monstery. So you have to, like, humanify them a little bit, right? You have to kind of educate them on how to be a human. And then once they're both, more chill, then you want them to be together, because then they fall in love.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, the Invisible Man, he's been out, stealing a whole bunch of stuff. You have to find all the evidence to pointing him to his crimes and then bring it to the precinct in order to fight him off there. So each one of the monsters has its own different, win condition that you have to fulfill. And this is it's a really great game. It's it's got that spooky vibe to it without being scary.
Yeah.
Which is a perfect for our family, October months and stuff like that. So I'll play it any time. But it is just a really fun cooperative game where it has that family spookiness without getting into the darkness.
Yeah. All right, my number 2 is Quirky Circuits. This is a programming game where there's a different robot on every page, and they have different movements, and you have some of the cards of the movements, and then your partner has some of the cards as the movements. And I do say your partner plays up to 4. Never do that. Only play 2-player. So, and what you do is you're placing the cards down, but you each have to play a game. So you don't know what programming card your partner has. You know, like, kind of the card because there's symbols on the back, but you don't actually know. So then you flip cards over, and then the robot does exactly what you guys did, and it's just so hilarious. I do want to say the first time I played this game, I didn't understand that you're just going to mess up a lot, and I was really frustrated. But once I got over that, and I was just like, this is whatever's going to happen is going to happen. We're going to try, but it doesn't mean anything. Then I had a blast. And also, I recently found out that there's going to be an expansion coming out. Yes! We've been talking about this for such a long time. I am so excited.
All right, so my number 2, this is the Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth. Oh my gosh, this is a big box full of tons and tons of minis. This is another app-driven game. The app just really kind of tells you where to place things and kind of does the math for you. All the action itself happens on the board. Yeah. There's a little bit of a deck building element. Over the course of the game, you can kind of modify your character and make them stronger and stronger and stronger. There's some probabilities as far as successes and fails that you're on the cards themselves. You have to weigh and measure whether you want certain abilities versus certain success ratios. And it's on this Lord of the Rings, theming as well, which we love. each scenario gets harder and harder and harder, and it is one continuous story as well. So you are kind of building upon itself, and characters that show up at the beginning might show up later on in the series. We knocked this thing out. I want to say it was like 12-ish, 13-ish scenarios.
Yeah.
We knocked it out in like 3 sessions because
Yes.
it was so immersive that we would play for 5, 6, 7 hours at a time and not even notice that a minute had gone by. We were just all completely enthralled.
The first time we played, we didn't realize how much time had passed until we were hungry.
No, we like missed a meal. We're like,
Yes.
why am I... Oh, we've been sitting for 6 hours or whatever.
Yes.
So highly recommend Lord of the Rings: Journeys in Middle-earth.
All right. We have arrived. We are here.
Number 1.
Number 1. My number 1 cooperative game is what people think of when they think of cooperative games. It is. And that is Pandemic. This is just like a perfect game. It's a great game. I just said it was a perfect game, and I'm going to talk about adding the expansions.
It's so perfect you have to add to it to make it better.
But we always play with in the lab. We almost never play base. We almost always play in the lab. The expansion.
We usually throw in a lot of them, actually.
Yeah, well, because they're great. It's great. You took something wonderful and you just added more wonderful stuff to it. And this is a game where there are 4 different viruses. If you play with the expansion, maybe 5 viruses roaming the board, and you are trying to create cures for them while also trying to prevent outbreaks from happening. This is just like, this is one of the first games that I think we owned. Like, it might have been in our first, 20 games.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and so we've had it with us for a very long time, and we've added the expansions, and we play with the expansions, and it's just, solid, yo. It is solid. Have we taught this to our daughter yet?
I don't know, but it's just such a perfect system, though, because it spawned, Pandemic Legacy Season 1, 2, and 0,
yes. Yeah.
as well as a lot of individual spin-offs. There's a Cthulhu, there's a...
Iberia.
The Iberia one we played recently.
Yeah.
So there's just so many different spin-offs. It just spawned a whole, slew of other games.
The idea of you versus the board was really neat when it first came out. It wasn't you versus each other, it was you versus the board.
Yeah, and it wasn't the first cooperative game by far, but it was the one that was like, hey, keep your eye out for cooperative games. They're awesome.
Yeah. Obviously.
All right, so my number 1, this is Black Orchestra. Oh my gosh, this is a super, super challenging, tough game. This is basically where if you've seen the movie Valkyrie, there's a scenario where some of the German army was rebelling against the Nazis and Hitler, and they were trying to overthrow him and take him out. So this game takes, those stories and puts them in gamified form. You are within the German army trying to take out Hitler and all the other kind of, big bads within the Nazi party. And it's so challenging and so cool. It's another one where there's a lot of historical facts going on as well, because a lot of these things really were attempted. None of them succeeded, obviously, but these were real things that happened. Especially as a German American, I love hearing stories about Germans taking out bad guy Nazi. So.
You're Bavarian.
Yeah, it's true. I'm Bavarian before the unification of Germany. Long story. Anyways, yes, what a cool game. This is, again, a really, really challenging one, and it's a little bit of a darker theme, a little bit more somber of a theme. But when you pull off that win, oh my gosh, it feels so good. All right, you guys, that is our top 10 cooperative game list. Talked about
with some honorable mentions.
Yeah, we shoehorned a couple in there. But the point is, we love cooperative games. The tougher, the better. What are some ones that we didn't talk about that you love? What are some ones that you hadn't heard of yet that you might want to check out? Let us know in the comments below. The more, the merrier. We want to check out all cooperative games.
Yes, and we also just absolutely love hearing from you. Until then, don't forget to subscribe so you can see our videos as they come out. You can find us on Facebook. We're Ryan and Bethany Board Game Reviews. On Instagram, we are Ryan and Bethany. On TikTok, we're Ryan and Bethany. And on Twitter, we are Ryan and Bethany 1.
All right, you guys, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye.